Hello and welcome to another video, and today we are going to be talking about 15 new features in OBS version 25. Before we start, I'd like to mention a few things. First of all, thank you so much for all the support, all the comments. I try to read through them all and I reply to most of them, especially if you need help, so I'll probably go out of my way to try and assist you. Thank you so much for all the likes. Thank you so much for all the views. It means a lot to me. And yeah, I think I'll try to release more content. I do have some things in mind and bit more advanced things we can do with OBS, but they'll be out eventually. The second thing you'll realize is that we're still not in the studio. The studio for the last 2 months has been used as a 3D printing farm to print face shields for the local medical community. It's important to note that the official owners of that studio are Invent 3D, who actually operate that 3D printing farm, so it would have been kind of illogical for us to take some time and go there to record tutorial stuff. So I'm doing it from home, and it's hot and there's noise outside because, well, the road's just there and it's a main road. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. So I have my AC off because of the noise, or my fans are off because of the noise, but luckily today it's a bit cloudy and this is about to take, I don't know, 11 of this video, but still. The good news is that the new house is accelerating as far as finishing it is going, so maybe by the end of the year we'll have a better space to do it, but for now this is it. So yeah, that's the air conditioning back there, which is off. I can see it off shot in my monitor, and it's a bit painful. The third thing I like to mention is that I'm opening my Discord to you guys on YouTube. It was previously mainly for my Twitch community, so it was open for anyone who watched me on Twitch, but I figured if you need help, you might want to come into Discord instead of leaving a comment, because it might be a bit more useful to do it that way. So every video from now on is going to have a Discord invite. Feel free to jump on, ask questions, and just chill out with us. We're a friendly bunch, for the most part, I hope. But yeah, feel free, the link is down there, click it, come visit us and say hi. Okay, so 15 features, where do we begin? Number 1 is volume lock. Now, it may seem trivial and a really simple thing, but it's very helpful. How many times have you dragged your mouse across the UI and hit one of your level bars and just pulled it away? This might not be a problem if you just run 1 or 2 volume bars at 100% on your mixer, because you know where they were. But if you fine tune a few of them, and I know I do, especially at events, then hitting one during production or being on stream might be a bit annoying. So what we can do now is right click each individual meter on the audio mixer and lock the volume. What this does is it just locks the slider on it. What it won't do is take away mute and unmute, so you can still mute and unmute that audio source. Number 2, dragging and dropping URLs. We can now go onto a website or have a link and just drag it into OBS, drop it there, a confirmation will pop up, we click yes, and now we automatically have a new browser source. It's important to note that you have to be in normal mode. What does this mean? It means do not launch OBS Studio in administrator mode, otherwise it won't work. I actually wasted some time before I realized that was a thing, but don't do that. If you're a developer and create something, say with Node.cg, and you constantly need to drag and drop your new links for new browser sources, you can also code into your page a specific code which is listed on the OBS website. I'll probably put it somewhere in the description actually as well, that allows you to automatically accept your new import. So you grab a page which you have your own code on, you drag it, and OBS will not say, listen, do you want this new source? Yes or no. You could just drag and drop, and that's that. Pretty handy for us developers. It helps a lot when we need a quick workflow. Number 3, the Twitch emote selection. This is of course specific to Twitch because these are Twitch emotes, but we have better TTV and franker faces. What we need to do is go into our OBS streaming settings, and there is a little drop down button. We click that and we can choose either better TTV, Frank-faces, or both. These will appear in the integrated OBS chat on the UI. So what happens there is where you have your chat doc, which you can enable from the docs, it will now show the Frank-faces embedded TTV emotes. So no longer do you have to open a new browser source, actually open a new browser to see the emotes there. Now you can see them within OBS. Number 4, Vulkan-based game capture. Games are rendered with a renderer, which is typically these days DirectX 11 or DirectX 12. Of course, there were other ones previous to that. Games can also be rendered in Vulkan if that is available to them. But there was no way of using game capture and capturing a Vulkan rendered game or a Vulkan rendered scene or whatever Vulkan will render. But now you can. Why is this beneficial? Well, some games run better on some machines when using Vulkan. Before, you had to just run display capture and just pull the entire display, but this may not be practical at points, and it would be suggested to use game capture. Now you can do that with Vulkan as well. So if you have a game which runs better on Vulkan, you could just hook into it with game capture, just as you would any other game. What's nice about this feature is that the OBS team actually got input from the Ubisoft Montreal team, so it's kind of a big thing, and it's nice to see big players assisting when it comes to open source streaming platforms. Quite nice. Number 5, a new window capture method. When we select window capture, now we have an option for a Windows 10, actually I think there's an automatic option, a Windows 7 and a Windows 10 option, which can allow certain types of windows to be picked up. It sort of changes the way things are picked up, so if something didn't work on window capture before, it might work now on the new one. The only thing is that currently with the Windows 10 option, the cursor cannot be hidden. This is something on Microsoft's side, which is apparently fixed in the way they do the window capture in a recent update, so maybe we'll get an update from OBS, but for now, it's important to note that the cursor will always be there. If you want to hide it, you have to go back to the Windows 7 mode, and then you can hide the cursor there. In fact, in Windows 10, the option isn't even there, only on the Windows 7 version. Little things, but it's important to note if you're trying to troubleshoot. Maybe in the future that will be fixed. Number 6, media source controls. Previously, we had no way of controlling a media source, absolutely zero. What we could do is activate a scene, and then the media source would become active, which is a bit annoying when you're at an event and you have an ad roll and you just play it, and then you'd have to know when that's going to end. So it's a bit tricky to work with. Nothing we couldn't go around, but it's a bit tricky to work with. Now, we don't have much more than we had, but we have something. We have 4 different options we can do. Number 1 is play, 2, pause, 3, stop, and 4, we have restart. These are only available as hotkeys. So now what we have to do is go into our hotkey menus and save hotkeys. These have to be done individually per different media source. There is a global option, but I couldn't get it to work for some reason, but at least you can do it individually. That worked fine for me. It's very nice to be able to control your media source at least a little bit rather than having it just run along. What's nice about this feature is that in the future, we might see a graphical update to it. So we'll have buttons on our interface and we'll have a timeline to know how much is left and where we currently are on the timeline, which is very handy if you say they give you a new ad roll and you don't know how long that's going to last and you don't want to guess if there's a new ad coming in or if you should change scene. It makes it much easier. Maybe at home it's not as difficult because you usually know or roughly have an idea what your media length is and when it's going to end. But at an event where you have people just coming in with new content for you to run live, it might be a bit tricky. So thumbs up, thanks for that, OBS. Number 7, scene collection imports from other software. When Streamlabs OBS released, it had a feature where it could pull all your sources from OBS straight into Streamlabs OBS. The problem was you couldn't go back, so you had to recreate everything if you made any changes. But now you can do just that. You can just grab whatever you have in Streamlabs OBS and go back to OBS. So if you are stuck in Streamlabs OBS and want to come back, now's your chance. These versions allow the movement back with all your scenes and everything straight into OBS. You may need a little bit of adjustment for some things. Maybe it happened even when I tried Streamlabs OBS, so going from OBS to Streamlabs OBS, but at least you save most of the time by doing this import. Number 8, the T-bar transition. What is a T-bar and where do I find it? Well, if you're running OBS in the standard mode, you will not see it, but if you hit studio mode right at the bottom right, it will enable your preview and your program windows. Right between those, somewhere about here, there is a crossfader, and it is just that. It's called a crossfader because you usually fade with it, but you can use it with other stuff. What you do with that crossfader is you click it and drag it, and with the speed you are dragging, the transition will happen. This, of course, doesn't apply to the cut transition, which is by nature an instant transition because it cuts, or a stinger, which is a pre-rendered video most of the time, so it doesn't allow that sort of flexibility. But if you're using something like a fade, then you can control the speed in which you want to fade. And once you let the fader go, then the fade's complete and it goes back to its original position. Number 9 is grid buttons for scenes. This is just a UI update. If you right click in your scene list, you now have a grid mode and you'll have a nice little grid, which in my opinion is better utilization of space, which is why I use it rather than having half a list empty. You'd say, well, yeah, you can shrink it up, but it's a bit strange for me to use it that way. So I like grid mode. I'd change a few things with it to enable it to be clearer to see what the titles are if they're a bit long, but all in all, it's a nice feature. Won't change anything, it's preferential, and if you want to go back to list mode, you can of course right click and go back to list mode. Number 10, source icons in the source list. We already had ways to identify by using colors or using groups, but now you can see what type of source it is by checking the icon right on the left side of the source name. You'll know if it's a video capture device, if it's a game capture, if it's a display capture, if it's a color, if it's a media source, anything. And it makes it easy to identify what type of source that is, especially if you made the mistake of renaming and trying to identify what it is, or at a glance realizing something's missing, and you can quickly identify, if you know what your scenes are, what's missing in that scene. And number 11 is saving the replay buffer. The replay buffer is a buffer in memory, so it's always in RAM, which you can specify in your encoder settings, and you can give it a time. So the more RAM you have, the more time you can assign. What this does is it acts sort of like CCTV, and it keeps the last footage from the present time according to what you specified. So if you specified a 1-minute replay buffer from now and a minute ago, we have that in buffer. So there's the whole last minute in the buffer. What's nice now is that we can save this replay buffer. To enable your replay buffer, you go to the bottom right, start your replay buffer, and then you have a small download icon appear right next to it. As soon as you click that download icon, the last minute, if you set your buffer to a minute, of video will be dumped into a video file as if you recorded just that 1 minute. This is very handy if you want to save highlights. If you previously recorded an entire video just to extract the highlights, then this is the way to go. If you're still paranoid about not getting the highlight, then you can still record and save the buffer and stream simultaneously, so that's not a problem. Of course, there's more resource usage, but what's also handy to do in this scenario is assign a hotkey to save the replay buffer. So if you assign a hotkey or put it on your Stream Deck or any other device you might have, you could press that button and you instantly have that highlight saved in your videos folder. Number 12, copying and pasting multiple sources. Before this version, we could just click one source, copy it, and then paste it into another scene, and you'd have to do it one by one. What I used to do is opt for a destructive method where you would copy a scene, paste it into a new scene so you have all your sources there, and then you delete what you don't need. It worked a bit better than copying things one by one, because deleting on the same scene instead of copy pasting and moving around the scenes, it takes a bit of time. But now at least we can choose which sources we want, we could copy them and paste them all in one go. Number 13 is monitor names. You might think monitor names will be listed in the display capture source, but no, they're listed in the projector context menu. So if you're somewhere and you've connected a projector or a big TV or something which is not usually connected to your system. You don't have to think about if it's display 1 or display 3 or display 4, if there's just one of them or maybe multiple. It makes it a bit easier because now it shows the name on the context menus. In number 14, we have aspect ratios for the canvas and the output. So if we go to our video settings all the way on the top right, we can see the aspect ratio in white. I don't think this will be very useful at home because you're usually streaming or recording with a 16:9 resolution, say full HD, or 720p, 1440p, 4K. Those are all 16:9 resolutions. But if you're doing something fancy or you're doing a custom 16:9 resolution, say 864p, then it's nice to know that at least you're on the correct ratio rather than having it off by just a little bit, which could mess things a bit up. Don't worry about it a lot if you're at home. Most of you want to look for 16:9. If it isn't correct, that's usually people who want to customize it know what they're doing to this setting. So if it's 16:9 for recording and streaming, you're set. You can leave it there, or you can use one of the presets in the drop downs provided by OBS themselves, and that's just fine. At number 15, we have the introduction of the SRT protocol. We won't get into this too much, but usually services are RTMP based and OBS can connect to an RTMP service just fine. If the service used SRT, then OBS couldn't connect to it before. Now it can. So if you use a service which uses the SRT protocol, now you can connect to it. And those were 15 new features in OBS 25. Of course, there are more than 15 new features in OBS 25. It was quite a big iteration, but I felt these were the ones that would affect most people. If you've liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next one.